Welcome back to another podcast episode on Surviving the Last Day podcast on this soulful Monday morning, guys. Today is March 30th, 2026, I believe. I can barely keep up with my days. Time just flies by. Anyway, guys, I was like, am I going to be able to make a podcast episode today? Because, I got this cold still. But I made a mixture of ginger, cayenne pepper, and turmeric. And so the cough has kind of subsided. But we'll see if I make it through this episode without coughing. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about, operating as a family in these last days because, or operating as a household in general, because you might not have your own little family. Like a lot of people are single, living on their own. So that's going to be included in this conversation, but as well as the single parents and the people that are running, single parent households and the people that have two parent households. It's just going to be about how to survive economically, as a household, as the head of household, and you can apply it as a single person or as a person with a family, basically. All right, let me play my intro. I'll be right back.
I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. John 16:33. Family, we are currently living in critical times, and we must prepare for the arrival of the kingdom of Yah. Let's be watchmen of our Savior. You are now listening to Surviving the Last Days podcast, a Bible-based podcast for kingdom preppers. Remnant of God, let's gather until that last trumpet sounds.
All right. Well, I don't know what everybody's up to this morning. Maybe in the rush hour commuting to work. Maybe already made it to work. Maybe you saw me on Instagram and you decided to click the link in my story bio and said, let me listen. So I appreciate it because, it's an important conversation I'm having today. So, a lot of us are head of household, right? Or you may be living with somebody and they may be head of household. It doesn't matter. The thing is that everybody in your household in these last days need to be economically mature. Maybe that's what I would title this episode. Being economically mature in the last days. Because it's dangerous to have financially illiterate people around you. And it's dangerous to have people who are financially immature around you and economically immature. And what I mean by economically immature is that person is kind of reckless with how they manage money and what they spend it on. They don't have an adult like way of managing their money. They're pretty childish with it. They'll blow their money. They don't have a budget for the day. I was looking at a video on Instagram. Instagram have all kind of videos. I really need to stay off of it. And there was one video where this American rapper Blueface was like, he was looking at his phone and he was wanting to send someone money. And he said, you know what, this is my spending limit today. And I assume he has an accountant, you know, because he's a pretty well-off person. So I assume he has an accountant. You know, us average folks, we don't have that. But anyway, they came up with a number that he can spend that day, and he was aware of that. And he is the most goofy, immature person I think ever, especially relational immature. He's immature in relationship. But when it came to that money, he looked at that phone and he said, this is my spending limit for today. He had a spending limit. So if you're a grown person, especially if you overly grown, I mean, in your late 30s and on up, and you don't even have a spending limit for a budget or anything, you're not conscious of where money needs to go and stuff like that, you are reckless. And why you don't need that kind of reckless economic and financial person around in the last days, or why you don't need them managing money in the last days or depending on them financially in the last days, because the last days really require us to be resourceful economically. That means that we can't just blow off money on bull crap. You know, you gotta make do. And a lot of things that we make do, like back in the day before we had all these little devices. I mean, we even got, you know, we got a apple cutter. We didn't even got to cut an apple like the old fashioned way. You know, you could just buy an apple cutter and slice it all at once. You could buy a onion cutter. You know what I'm saying? We got easy way of doing things, right? But back in the day before we had all this convenience, they used to make do. And what they created was so efficient. You know, they used to have to make do. They made their own household cleaning products. Like, do you have to go spend $100 on cleaning products? If you want to, but at the same time, you could buy the natural ingredients and mix them together and have a wonderful cleaning product. And it definitely might be cheaper. So having a person that thinks like that around, you're going to end up saving a lot of money. And it's not about saving money because the American dollar is deteriorating. But you're going to be actually you're going to have enough money left over to put for something very important, basically, that you will need in the last days. You know, like farmland, like abundance of seeds, like survival gear, like a bug out bag and a bug in bag. You know, you'll have money to put on more important things. So having an economical leader is very important in the last days. And I would say your economical leader would be your head of household. Whoever household you under, are they economically dependable? Do you think they can sustain a roof over your head, food on the table for you and your children, and do that, right? By being resourceful, not depending on the government to do it, you know, because I know a lot of people have a government dependency and they get their food stamps, you know, they get their unemployment and they get their disability and stuff. But, you know, I know those things are needed for certain seasons in life, and by all means use the resources that the government give right now, because you never know when they're going to shut it off. But at the same time, don't be solely dependent on those, you know, because it's people that I know that get disability, but they know how to sell plates on the side. You know what I'm saying? They know how to do hair on the side. You know, there's a lot of people that get disability, but they don't depend on that one income because they got kids, they got a household, and they do things to get money. They hustle, they have skills, you know what I'm saying? So It's an economically mature person, I think, would have another skill, whether it's going to the grocery store for the elderly, just looking to see who's needing to go to the grocery store that can't make it, because they are elderly and disabled. Who needs Instacart? You could be your own grocery personal shopper for somebody. And that's how they used to do it back in the day before they had Instacart for people. If an elderly person needs you to go to the grocery store, they be like, hey, sweetheart, come here. I need you to go to the store for me, and you could get yourself something too. Things were done like that back in the day, But an economically immature person, they would only depend on one system. They would depend on the school system. Oh, I'm gonna go back to school and get a job. I know a lot of people say that when people cry about unemployment, they say, oh, well, I'm in nursing school and all this. It's like, how you gonna just blurt out that you're in nursing school and a person just got fired or laid off and they need income like right now? They need it immediately. They can't wait 3 years to be a nurse. Even if you do go to nursing school and you get financial aid and you pay your bills with financial aid, you get in debt. I guess it's okay to get in debt. I don't really think that's smart debt. I mean, to get in debt for a job, that's ridiculous. I don't think that's smart. Me personally, that's my own personal opinion. I mean, unless you really want to be a nurse and you're very passionate about it, but usually that's not the case. Because if you really want to be a healer, you can just be a healer like Dr. Sebi and not have to even go through the pharmaceutical industries or anything like that. So it's all for just money and the title and job, So get in debt for that, I wouldn't advise it. That's not economically mature. To get in debt, not get in debt for a new car. Some people get a loan for a new car. Well, you need a car, you need transportation. You got a job, you can pay the car note up, pay your principal. Then, do that. You know what? This system could go on another 2 or 3 years. You might not even end up paying the car off because this could all be shut down. So I don't know. It could all be because the last days, the real last of the last days, they supposed to be so chaotic. The system's gonna crash and the power grid gonna go down. They ain't gonna have just like Hurricane Katrina, they ain't gonna have no track of who graduated and who paid what and what loan was given. They ain't gonna have no track of it, no way. So if we live through that part, if we get to that part. But anyway, what I'm saying is, you can go to the Bible for advisement on how to handle money. The Bible definitely tells you it's better to be a lender than a borrower. So the Bible does not promote debt. The Bible do promote paying your bills, paying off whatever you owe to someone. If you owe your energy company, if you owe your water bill, get on top of your bills. But at the same time, just be more resourceful than being more spendy. Something breaking your house, learn how to create something or fix something. You got to have some fixers around. You got to be a fixer. I remember I wanted a snack box for my home office. I ended up creating a snack box by using an old gift bag and using it as my covering and an old Amazon box. And it turned out to be cute. The gift bag that I used was printed with sunflowers and it was pink. I just glued it to the cut it out the way I wanted and cut the Amazon box the way I wanted and wrap my gift bag covering around it, and it turned out great. Resourceful. I didn't have to buy a snack box. Yes, they make snack boxes. But why I gotta buy one when I can make one? You know what I'm saying? You can do your own hair, ladies. You can do your own nails. Whatever you can do. Being more self-sufficient is economically mature. And I could go on and on about this, but I'm going to go ahead and sign off.